If you are a developer working with JWT tokens, you might want to stick around for this one. The .NET team is working on something very cool. Hi everyone, my name is Fani Renders and welcome to my channel. And in this video I'm going to show you something cool in my opinion that I think is super helpful as developers work with JWT tokens in their workflow, especially working with authorization endpoints. Damien Edwards from the ASP.NET Core team has spoke about this a while ago. There's also a blog post, or a repo rather, that he's done with it, including a video that I will link down below into the comments, explaining it's a little tool called DevJWTs that it's experimental, but it will find its way into the tool chain hopefully in the future. But this will allow us to create developer JWTs for testing API endpoints, which is super helpful because currently now it's quite cumbersome creating these JWTs to test your API endpoints with. So I've already cloned this this repo in this folder, and if we take a look at the folder structure here, we have a couple of things like the CLI that is included in here, but also a sample API that's also shipped with the source code that we can test the thing against. So do note this sample API is just any normal ASP.NET Core API. Technically, it can work with any ASP.NET Core web API that you have. But in this case, it's the sample web API. Let's quickly look through it and how it works and see if we can give some feedback to it. So what I have now, firstly, we have this sample API, and in the sample API, we have a few endpoints, one of which is the normal root endpoint, which is just unprotected hello world endpoint that gives hello world back. And then we have 4 protected endpoints, one of which is just requiring normal authorization, another one that's requiring a certain claim called custom claim. And then we have one that requires a certain role called sample role. And then we have one that requires a certain scope, which is protected read scope. And now doing this in a browser, so we go to the folder and we say .NET run, the folder of the ASP.NET Core project. And typically you can just click on this link and it will obviously open up the API that's unprotected. But I have actually a better way of doing this. And normally I talk about running APIs from within VS Code or wherever. There's this thing called HTTPRepl. It is a .NET global tool, which stands for read eval print loop. It's quite a cool tool to use in terms of invoking your APIs that has a Swagger functionality, open API specification functionality in your API. So it kind of crawls your API and it will give you like a CLI interface towards your API. And to install it is fairly easy. You just go .NET tool install Microsoft.NET HTTPRepl. I already installed this tool here, right? So this is how you install it. And then while this is running, while my application is running on this base localhost 7157, you can invoke this by going HTTPRepl and giving the application base URL in there. Now it's kind of connected. Now we can do a couple of things. We can go ls to view all the endpoints that's there, and of course if you go get dot, it will give us hello world. That is fine, right? There's hello world, and it's also note it's 200 OK that is getting responded. But now when we get to get protected, we can see now it is a unauthorized response, which we kind of expected it to be. All right, so having said that, let's now use this tool to create a JWT token for us. So in the root directory, we now need to go to the DevJWTs CLI folder, and we need to say .NET build to build the bits. Then that will create a exe for us. And once that's done, we can just go back to our root directory and cd into the samples directory. I'm just going to clear the screen for that one. And what we now need to do is it needs to be in the scope of the sample project, right? So that is why we are changing directory into this sample project. So the way of calling this, we need to go to the CLI, the dev CLI, bin debug net7, and then also it's the DevJWTs exe. Executing that will give us these commands. Create for creating ones. We can even create a specific JWT token for explicitly for a certain user. The default one just creates one for the logged in user. So like in my case, Afani, I'm logged in at my computer. We can list tokens and we can delete and clear them as we speak, right? So that's cool. So doing that, again, we say create, right? And what I found is typically the first error I got was could not find part of the path this. So that got me thinking, why does this not work? So this user secret that is defined in this folder structure is defined in your CS_proj file here. This can be anything, right? But default out of the box, this gave me problems. And also when we want to go to this folder, right? If we say dir this folder, it does not exist on my PC. So what you need to do is you need to use something called .NET user secrets, and you need to kind of initialize it as well. So you need to initialize that in here, and that should probably solve the problem. But what I've also found is just for the sake of creating that file, we can just say .NET user secrets set, and I'll just say foo bar, just to kind of set a arbitrary user secret. And now when we actually go to this directory, we see that the secrets file is indeed created and it's ready for us to use. All right, so now creating a JWT, fairly simple. We just go create, and there we go. There is the command that has been created, or there is the JWT that has been created. We can copy that one out. I just need to also restart this application, because now it kind of sucks in the new secrets that has, because previously the secrets has not existed yet. So now it's actually in memory. So remember to restart your sample project. Now in your HTTPRepl thing, we can use CLS to clear the command, which is the CLI interface. And then we can say set header authorization, and we need to set the bearer token and paste the token that we've just created in there. And remember the quotes, very importantly. This will set the scope, or this will set the context for the coming requests using this bearer token. Now, when we go to get protected, indeed, we will get back an OK message, which says hello Fani, which is pretty neat in my opinion. Right, so let's explore the other endpoints, right? So we are now in the scope of slash. So if we say cd protected, if we say ls, we get custom roles and scopes. So if we say get custom, again, with the same bearer token that we've defined above, it's unprotected. So now we need to create a certain JWT token for custom. And again, during the documentation, you can set that. When we go back to our CLI, we can say create. Let's look at what we can create here by going -h. We can create one for a certain scope, one for a certain role, and one for a certain claim, or claims rather. And looking into the source code, the custom one requires one that says custom claim, right? So this is the custom claim that we need to have the claim for that JWT token. Right, so now let's create one. Let me just move this a bit out of the way. There we go. -c for the claims, and we need to say the claim is custom claim. Like that. Custom claim. All right, so that will create a JWT token for a custom claim one. This JWT token now should be able to be valid for that request. So copy that JWT token in there, going to our REPL. And if we say set header authorization, by the way, you can use tab to do this. You say bearer, and you paste it in there. And now when we go to our get custom, lo and behold, we'll get OK back that says I've got the certain claims. So we can do the same thing again and again for all the other endpoints that's there, right? So again, we can go for a certain role, that is -r. And the role that we were looking for in this case is sample role, right? So let's say, and also I think casing is important. So it's sample role. That will create a dev token for us there, copying it out. Actually set header authorization, bearer, and pasting it in. And then going back to the role one, that will give us an OK message as well there, which is very cool in my opinion. But you've noticed that it is quite tedious, to go back here and to, use this exe every time to create and all those kind of things. I'm going to show you a better way of doing this. It's called .NET Global Tools. I will also link this in the description down below, but this is a way of creating .NET Global Tools and installing them either locally to your local workspace or globally to your machine, and actually use this. So this is an example of a bot say command that is available for us to use. So I'm going to use the same mechanism, but to make something a global tool, you need to do a bit of modification to the source code. All right, so we go to create tool. What we need to do is we need to put in a few settings. Like in this case, we have these settings, pack as tool, right? Pack as tool that we need to put in to our CS proj of the tool, and also the command name. So in this case, it will expose bot say as the command name. And where the NuGet packages need to be created, we'll, in this case, it's nubkg. Let's quickly do the same thing. So I've copied these things out. Going to our dev.CLI exe, pasting that in there, just beautifying it a bit. So let's call this tool JWT. And we'll say we want to package this this output. I've already created a local feed for this. We want to execute or output this into the NuGet folder that I have on my machine. Great, so that is it. A quick save. Going back to the PowerShell command, let's go into the DevJWTs CLI. When we now execute .NET pack, this will now create a NuGet package for us inside of the NuGet folder. This is now DevJWTs nubcake. Right, so that's another name for NuGet packages. Right, so now the next thing that we need to do is install this as a global tool. We do this by going .NET tool install -g for global, and we need to give it a name. In this case, the name is dev-jwts, which is typically your NuGet package name that we have. Right, so that is the case. Then when we install this global tool, we see that it is successfully installed, sourced from the local directory that we have. Technically now we can call this from any directory, and it says here, very importantly, it says here that it is we can now invoke this JWT or this JWT tool using JWT in this case. So if we say JWT, we see the whole tool chain gets invoked as expected. Going back to the directory of the developer ASP.NET DevJWTs, we can now, for instance, call this whole thing. So the sample application that we have is sample web API. Now the workflow can look differently. Now we can say, for instance, in the scope of the sample application, we can say JWT create, and that will give us a JWT token. So this will dramatically reduce the steps that we need to take to create JWT tokens in the future. And hopefully this will become part of ASP.NET Core, or the toolchain rather. So that is basically it. Feel free to comment down below what you think about this tool. And if you know about any other JWT tooling that's available, please let us know in the description down below. Thank you so much, and do subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon to be notified the next time I post new content. Thank you so much, and take care.